Thank you for joining us here on 24 Plus. I'm Lauren Turman, here to walk you through some of the details behind one of the cases that we've been following. Yesterday, the family of 22-year-old Matthew Williams, who was shot during a Memphis Allies Switch Program meeting on April 9th, 2025, his family brought forward a lawsuit, and they went over the details of a lot of that. We specifically have covered this yesterday, but I'm here before you now to run down some more of the information about this case and some of the details that you might not have known that have come out of this more than 115-page lawsuit. So I'm here to tell you some of the circumstances that have surrounded this shooting, what led up to it. I also have a specific conversation with one of the attorneys in this case that we will also bring to you right here on 24 Plus about the details in this case, the suspects who have not been caught yet, and about another shooting that they say could have helped in preventing the one that took the life of 22-year-old Matthew Williams. Again, all of these attorneys at the Cochran firm presented much of this lawsuit yesterday, so I am going to walk you through a lot of the evidence that they have presented here in the lawsuit and what all you need to know about the details that have been leading up. So first, let's go through exactly what happened on April 9th, 2025 at the Youth Village's Memphis Allies Switch Program meeting. Again, the Switch Program is specifically intended to help young adults who may have been struggling with gun violence, who may have gang affiliation or crew affiliation in the community, to help them in their recovery efforts. It's specifically targeted towards young adults between the ages of 12 and 35 at highest risk of gun violence. And of course, that intervention program served to service much of the community at this time, according to Youth Villages. Specifically, on Wednesday morning, April 9th, 2025, there were several Switch Program participants, as well as other life coaches, outreach supervisors, and a security guard who was present at this meeting. Just before 3:30 p.m., a stolen white Acura pulls into the parking lot in front of where that meeting is taking place, and we're going to show you the events that happened that day right before the moment of impact. Peccary Roberts was named later on as a more of an accessory to this crime, but as it stands now, and according to the Cochran firm, all of the people who were inside of the stolen white Acura have not been arrested or identified at this time, and there is still an ongoing investigation into who those people are and to eventually bring them to justice, according to the Cochran firm and Memphis Police Department. Now, back to what happened there. Several people got out of the car and began shooting through the glass at this meeting. Matthew Williams was hit multiple times, as were 3 other Switch Program participants and another Youth Village's employee. And so, very soon after the shooting ends, there were several people who got back into that car and then drove 3 miles down to the intersection of Fairbrook Avenue and Curtis Street. We're going to take you to some video of that incident right now. You can see they're meeting another person, now identified as Peccary Roberts, the driver of the dark blue Audi. That person then gave them a can of gasoline or another accelerant at that time. They doused the car and then burned it. All of the suspected shooters then abandoned the white car as it was burning and left in the blue Audi. Now again, you can see all of this unfolding on the video. The first time that we really saw this was yesterday when the Cochran firm was presenting this information with the family of 22-year-old Matthew Williams and announcing their intent to sue Youth Villages over that lack of protection and negligence claims that they are making in this lawsuit as well. But again, it is important to go over some of these events and what they have named here specifically. A lot of the information that they might not have had a chance to get to in this lawsuit. Again, it is more than 115 pages. They talked about the extent of which all of these participants were meeting. Again, there were several other Switch Program participants in the building. It is named in this lawsuit that the intended participant of this shooting was not Matthew Williams, but instead another person. However, several people, of course, ended up getting shot as a result of this. There were multiple injuries, and several people were also transported to hospitals and received medical care, of course, following this shooting. Going through the glass, everyone had spread out. If you can see in the video now, everyone has spread out across multiple areas of this room as that shooting is happening and as everybody is trying to really get their bearings and figure out what is going on. The video and the lawsuit then show that the security guard ventures outside of the building to assess the situation and see what is going on. Again, the lawsuit states that there was a single security guard in the building at the time. However, Youth Villages has issued a statement and said that there were also other security guards and other security measures that are on the property as always. And earlier today, I spoke with attorney Howard Manis, who brought forward a lot of this evidence that they have in the lawsuit yesterday. He spoke with me about the suspects in this case, as well as some new evidence that was presented in this lawsuit. Take a listen to what we spoke about.
There's two areas in particular that I really want to ask you about today. The first is about the 15-year-old who was killed a few days, of course, before this whole incident happened with Matthew Williams. I wanted to ask you because I know for if people who are hearing it for the first time would really probably be astounded about the communication from Youth Villages. Can you just start by telling me a bit more about the investigation into that, what you all saw, and why that is relevant, especially when it comes to this case?
Sure. Well, first, as to the specifics of the 15-year-old, we're going to be limited to what's in our complaint. Now that it's been filed, we will have to stay within the parameters of what's in there. So I'll direct you back to that as it relates to the specific allegations about the 15-year-old and so on and so forth. The point being, in part, is that this is a highly dangerous circumstance. In other words, bringing all of these people together under the circumstances that they did to try to address gun retaliation is problematic in and of itself. But then when you add in the mix of members of the group or general people in the switch program that are having present issues, it exacerbates. And then the question becomes, do you owe, or what do you owe the participants in the way of information to decide if they really want to be there under those circumstances? Because as things ratchet up with other individuals, it's clear that it may not be the best place for you to be in the middle of. And not sharing with the participants that there were generally problems, not necessarily specifics, because obviously there are going to be some limitations on what they can share about other individuals. But you know, whether or not they tell everyone or not, they have an obligation, a duty to maybe shut things down for a little while or change the way they do certain things. Not meet and group, for instance, would be something to do. Change locations, bring in additional security, anything other than status quo. Because if there are incidents or issues going on outside of the normal course of business there that are potentially adverse to the participants, that is part of their duty, their obligation to those who they bring into this group.
Sure. And with that, on that same point, I know a lot of what you just mentioned was about the duty of Youth Villages in particular as well there. And I think also another note here is that this 15-year-old was suspected to be in connection of the same gang or crew as another participant of this program. When it comes to the just general connection, obviously through the lens of the lawsuit, the intended recipient of the shooting was, of course, somebody other than Matthew Williams. But I just ask you, how does all of that connectivity with these members play into this suit for you all?
Well, we look at everything from the legal standpoint, right? There's a duty, a breach of the duty, and then a damage. Okay, the law decides when a duty exists. Duties don't always exist. They arise out of certain relationships or circumstances and so on and so forth. And we lay that out in our complaint that the duty here existed because of the relationship, for one, for bringing them to their place of business to do these things, so on and so forth. For the special relationship between Matthew, for instance, and the organization that will then also create a duty or expand on the duty. And the law in Tennessee, the greater the danger, the bigger the duty, the bigger the responsibility. Well, I would submit that in this set of facts, I think that the duty, the obligation on youth villages was extreme. They have put together a extremely dangerous situation, and that duty ratchets up as opposed to, for instance, if you walk on a property at a convenience store. Okay, well, that duty to the owner of that convenience store is just strictly to do reasonable steps to make it safe from known danger. Okay, so for instance, if it was in a high crime area, they would need to do certain level of security to protect someone they invite to the property. Okay, well, that's on one end, but on this end, we're talking about gathering multiple people who are actively involved in retaliatory shootings together. I mean, so you're multiplying that risk factor by however many people are in the middle of that to one place. So we start there. And then you start adding in layers of information that are not known to the other participants, but are known or should be known to youth villages, that this one's hot, that this one got arrested with a gun, that this one's family member X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. I'm just giving examples. It continues to ratchet it up to a certain point in time. Youth villages have an obligation to say this is no longer safe to move forward with. Okay, we are at a point where we need to step back and say we cannot make this safe, reasonably safe. And clearly that was not what was going on. Just the opposite was going on. It was business as usual. They didn't inform the other participants. So even the other participants didn't have free will to say, yeah, this is too much for me. Okay. If I'd have known this, that, and the other, then I'd have taken the days off, or I would have stopped my participation in the program or whatever. That's one issue. And the other is what affirmative steps were taken by youth villages to address this increased danger. You see on the video what it was. You had one security guard sitting behind a desk and a metal detector, all inside, nothing outside. There was not a gate, not a security guard, not a fence that limited access to the area. You've got a front facade that's all glass. I mean, it just it reeks of I don't care. If you remember from the video, there's a blue Audi that provides a gas can to the four participants in the white Acura. And then he drives them away from the scene. That is alleged to be Bakari Roberts. So Bakari Roberts was not a participant in the actual shooting, either as the driver or one of the three shooters. So what you're looking at is four additional people who were present in the white Acura, excuse me, one driver and three shooters who have not been identified, who have not been arrested, who have not been charged. So it's not two people that we're still looking for, it's four people. And they are the actors in this, whereas Bakari is more of an accessory after the fact by providing the gas can for the burning of the stolen vehicle and for transporting the suspects away from the scene. What more he may have had to do with it, we don't know. We know he wasn't in the vehicle itself because he was in his own vehicle. So he could not have been one of the three shooters or the driver of the white Acura.
So just to clarify, as it stands right now, the driver, the other shooters that were in that stolen car, they've not been caught at this point.
As far as we know, no one in the white Acura has been arrested, okay, or even identified, at least publicly. Whether the police or the district attorney's office has information as to who they are, they've not shared that with the public. That was part of my concerns and why I wanted and finally did get permission to play the video. The white Acura was stolen 4 months prior to this event. So that vehicle has been driving around the city in somebody's possession for 4 months. I would think that if I was trying to identify who might be a participant in this, I'd be showing that car to the public and asking, has anybody seen anybody driving this white Acura? And if so, call Crime Stoppers, call Sergeant Smith, tell us who it is so we can go talk to them and see when they had it, how long they had it, or possibly investigate them as suspects or develop them as suspects in this shooting. The fact that it's never been shown until yesterday to the public um, is head scratching at a minimum to me. I've been doing this for a long time. It begs the question of why not.
And lastly, I'd love to ask you, of course, Matthew Williams' mother was very choked up yesterday, could not speak with us. Can you talk to us or give us just any more insight as to anything you believe she may have said, or she is just telling you all and communicating to you all as this case involving her son moves forward? And specifically, of course, more about her desires and all of this and just what that communication has been like.
I'm not at liberty to talk about conversations between counsel and our client. Obviously, she is distraught over the loss of her son, as any mother would be. Matthew, from all accounts, was a great kid. A young man, excuse me. He was a caregiver to family members in the home. Um, you know, we've got some questions that we want answered as to his involvement in this program. He didn't fit the characteristics of what they were looking for. He wasn't involved in a gang or any active gang shootings or for him to have been into this program. So we're going to need answers as to why he was in this program, and as opposed to maybe some other program that is not so dangerous, because the criteria we've seen and is in the literature does not fit Matthew. Um, you know, so that's a question and an issue that we're going to want to get to the bottom of with Youth Villages in Discovery is, you know, why was he there?
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Unless there's anything else that you would like to add or you would like for the public to know, I appreciate your time.
No, I thank you for taking, how serious y'all are taking this matter and following up on it and continuing to keep the story moving forward, because I think that it has not moved forward up until this time. And I'm glad that the filing of our lawsuit maybe has relit some fire, and a lot of questions need to be answered. I think if you go into our complaint and you read the details to which we have made allegations and facts supported, I mean, we've put footnotes on almost everything we could put a footnote on. So it's not really our opinions that we're sharing. We're sharing facts. A lot of taxpayer dollar has gone into this program, and they need to be held accountable for that. And they need to be doing this in a manner that's safe. And if it can't be done safe, then it does not need to continue.
And again, you just heard from attorney Howard Manis as we were discussing a lot of the details of this case, and specifically some of the parts that you might not have heard in the press conference they held yesterday. One thing that was mentioned here that is of significant importance is some of the events that happened prior to the April 9th shooting that took Matthew Williams' life. 2 days before that shooting, on April 7th, 2025, a 15-year-old participant in Youth Village's Switch program was shot. It's named in this lawsuit as he was being shot in the head while he was asleep in his mother's apartment in the Hickory Hill area as well. Now, according to this lawsuit, it is important to note that they believe this person, this 15-year-old, was affiliated with the same gang or clique or crew as another participant in the Switch program. And so really a lot of this is specifically talking about how those events and how the communication that the Cochran firm is alleging Youth Villages had was not sufficient for what happened here, for the death of this 15-year-old. They said that Youth Villages did not communicate with other program participants or staffing that this child had been killed. They also said that there were no programs that were canceled during that week, and that there were regularly attended programs still being held throughout the duration of the week at this time, even though this event had transpired with this 15-year-old as well. And of course, as you just heard, when I spoke with Mr. Manis, he was talking to me about those events and how the precautions there are important as evidence for their law firm at this time and on the behalf of the family of Matthew Williams as leading up to this series of events. Again, it's important to note we don't know if the suspects are related to the shooting that involved the 15-year-old or also related to the events that happened on April 9th at the Switch program meeting. But again, it does allege in this lawsuit that all of these connections and incidents play off of each other in a manner in which this 15-year-old child was involved in the Switch program, and then 2 days later, another mass shooting happens involving other participants of the Switch program as well. I did specifically reach out to Youth Villages about this allegation in the lawsuit, about what they have presented here within this lawsuit, and Youth Villages said that they are sticking to the initial statement that they provided at this time, and they do not wish to disclose other information about that. Of course, many of these instances surrounding these shootings are ongoing investigations. We have been reaching out to the Memphis Police Department to see if they can provide us with any more information about the victims, about any discovery that has been surrounding the suspects or victims at this time. And they have said, as of right now, they cannot disclose more information than what they already have about the suspect, again, 21-year-old Bakari Roberts, that was allegedly more of an accessory to this crime. And then, of course, with this only happening 2 days prior to the mass shooting, that is something that the Cochran firm is saying proves a lot of their points in terms of this case. It creates a pattern of negligence, they feel, from Youth Villages in terms of the communication, from the staffing, in terms of the communication to participants of this program, and then just generally who they are connected with. You heard Attorney Manis talk more about how connectivity plays into all of this. Of course, how this is expected to be a recovery and support program and encouraging specifically young members who may be at high risk of gun violence to turn away from that. This now presents another layer on top of that in terms of what a lot of people are saying in this, specifically from the Cochran firm, is coming from the Youth Villages program and many of the staffers that they have there as well. And it is important, of course, that we mention Youth Villages did issue a statement to us about this lawsuit yesterday following that press conference with the Cochran firm. So I want to read to you exactly what they said in response to this. Quote, Youth Villages is aware of the lawsuit filed on February 27th regarding the tragedy that occurred at one of our Memphis Allies facilities on April 9th, 2025. That day, the peace we so tirelessly pursue was shattered by the very gun violence we strive so hard to end. Tragically, 4 participants and 1 staff member were injured, and our participant, Matthew Williams, lost his life in a drive-by shooting. We remain heartbroken for his family, his friends, and all who loved him. We care deeply for those we serve, getting to know them and their families. Following the shooting, we stood by the Williams family and those who were injured, providing support and care during this devastating time. Our devotion to security measures, which have always included metal detectors and armed security guards, reflect those of our peer programs across the country. Armed security was present that day, as they are every day, and was just a few feet away from the victim. While disclosing additional security enhancements since the incident could undermine their effectiveness, the community should be assured that we continuously evaluate our facilities for security and safety opportunities. Memphis Allies takes an extensive approach to reducing gun violence through our clinical program models, requiring hard work and accountability from both participants and staff. Our participants, who were the most at risk for gun violence, either have been shot or as a shooter, meet in our offices and across the community with their support teams. Since the program's inception, the safety and security of our staff and participants have always been one of our highest priorities. Since 2022, we have served more than 1,409 participants, and 91% have not had a gun-related charge while in programming. More than 225 staff are working every single day in their neighborhoods across the city that need the most help. Our program, which was developed with guidance from experts and established programs, has quickly grown to be one of the leading gun violence intervention initiatives in the country. We remain committed to continuing this necessary work to address the epidemic of gun violence and to make our city safer for all. We often say one life lost to gun violence is too many, and we know we must press forward for Matthew and every victim of gun violence. And as we are about to wrap things up here on 24 Plus, I do want to make sure I mention what Matthew Williams' family is looking for out of this lawsuit. They are asking for up to $35 million in damages, and they are also demanding a jury trial. Again, we have been reaching out to the Memphis Police Department in this case. They have not been able to provide us with more information about the shooters in this case. There have not been any arrests made on that front or identifications made. However, again, we do know that 21-year-old Picari Roberts was arrested as the driver of that dark blue Audi, as you just heard from Attorney Manis there. Of course, any developments that come out of this case, any further information that may be brought regarding these suspects, and anything else that you all need to know about this lawsuit and as this case progresses, we will bring it to you right here on 24 Plus and across all of our ABC 24 platforms. Again, thanks for joining us.